Good evening. My name is Emily McVarish, and I'm Director of Design here at CCA. And those of you who are here on Tuesday, I can say you're in for another treat tonight. So, but as I did on Tuesday, I'd like to just start by saying a few words of thanks. So first of all, to you all for coming. Thank you. We're just thrilled to have Joost van Bleiswijk, something like that. Good enough. Here tonight, and I'm really glad to see that so many of you were able to make it to hear him speak tonight. I also want to thank my colleagues, the chair of the Industrial Design Program here, Sue Redding, Alex McManus, and Lisa Stoneman for all the work they did to organize this event. And I also want to express, as I did on Tuesday, our huge gratitude to the Consulate General of the Netherlands for supporting the initiative to bring Joost and others here this week. It's been a great partnership, at least on our end. It's just been really this sort of concentration of excitement. I hope we can do something like it again. And so that's pretty much it from me. I want to just invite Sue up to introduce Joost.
Hi, everybody. I want to remind you, first of all, that tomorrow there's a reception at 7 o'clock. And there's also the competition we've been running with the ID4 class and all the ID classes. And we're awarding the competition awards tomorrow at 7:30. So please come to that. Personally, I think the Netherlands produces some of the best designers in the world. The Dutch design is, from a personal viewpoint, they don't have clients, no focus groups, no research. They design because they really love beautiful objects. And I realized how important that was today when we were talking to ID students, that you're so used to the research and working with clients that sometimes you forget your vision. When I asked my Dutch design friends who they would recommend to come, they on everybody's list was Joost, so I was really excited when we were able to get him to come here. He likes to create modern versions of forgotten objects, grandfather clocks, hourglasses, chess sets, goblets. I'm sure you'll see it in his work. His work has appeared in the New York Times, Wallpaper, Vogue, Elle Decor. He's exhibited at a number of galleries in Europe and the United States. So with that, I'd like to introduce one of my personal design heroes, Joost van Bleiswijk.
Well, thank you. Can you all understand? Yeah, you can all understand me, I hope. Well, thank you for coming. And I start my lecture here with how I started my career. I was 2 years old here, and you see me playing with wood blocks, and I think that's sort of essential thing of my career, to keep on playing with either wood blocks or something else. You can see here the little workshop my father built for me and my brothers, and you know, we were sitting all the time over there making little things. And my mother notices over here in there's a photo album, and she wrote a little thing. I was here 5.5 years old, and she thinks I'm extremely creative. Well, she has the idea because I can make with a couple of blocks of wood, what does she say? I can build something, I can make a boat or something, where she is completely blown away by. Well, I thought about doing this in the future too. I come from Delft. You have a big university there with industrial design and architecture. But I went to see a lecture over there to see whether that would be my my choice for a study. And I was so bored by this professor who was doing this lecture. I thought, no, this is not it. I went to Art Academy. I thought it was a bit too vague. And then I found out that Eindhoven, the design academy over there, was like the perfect thing for me. So that's where I met my girl Kiki van Eyck. You might know her work too. She made the very famous Kiki carpet. It's a big rose, a blown up version of a doll's house carpet. And already during my study at the academy, I found out that I was really interested by these sort of forgotten objects, and that I rather would design an oil lamp like this, inspired on a classic Roman oil lamp, that would make some really cool new kind of thing. So I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, but I wanted to get the sort of base of a product. So I, for example, in this project, was still doing my studies. I wanted to investigate what the sort of core was of this chair. So I made one, there was one continuous line, one with legs that were slightly attached, and one with a completely different base and the seat. And later on, there was the base of my graduation project. It was the outlines. That was completely about recognizing objects. And what you see over here is that I took away the actual object. So you do see a lamp, but actually there is no lamp. It's just the outline of it. And I thought it was really interesting to make a suggestion of something and make it really sort of show the core of something. And in this case, it is slightly still a functional object. Although the lamp doesn't work, people do place them in their house and it sort of acts like a lamp, which I think is funny because, you know, it's not. So it becomes sort of art piece, or it's somewhere in between everything. So after I graduated, yeah, the question was, what next? I didn't want to go work for some company or something. I felt way too sort of expressive to do that. So what we did with a group of people, we squatted a big workshop and we started to work there. And in this workshop, I found, you know, an old pile of wood, and I just started to cut some slots in there and put it together as a sort of first kind of chair. And I called this method, I called it no screw, no glue, because that was what it was. It was only the wood, and there was no other thing to it to put it together. So to make this whole thing bigger, make it all work, we thought about, me and Kiki, also, what are we going to do? How are we going to start up a business? And we thought about, okay, I'm quite handy and quite skilled as a woodworker, so why don't we invest in a workshop and we make our own stuff? So with some molds, we didn't have money to buy a CNC routers and all kind of things, so we just did everything by hand. So with some mold and a hand router, you can make any kind of objects. So we invested in some simple tools. So we could make molds, also to make ceramics. And just from a simple drawing, the next day you could have the actual piece. And over here you see, for example, the chair standing on a pile of separate elements. So that chair is it's made of 6 different elements and slotted together. So you get it as a sort of flat pack. And also the cabinet is made like that. And it was funny, the first one I sold was to a friend in London. And he used to come over to Eindhoven airport. And every time he went back, he took a couple of pieces with him in the plane. And took him about 4 times to get the whole cabinet there. So, because we could make everything in a workshop, so every table we sold, every chair we sold, we could invest again in that workshop. So we could make also bigger pieces like this. It's quite a big cupboard, and this one, it was sort of adopted by Liedewij Edelkoort, the world renowned trend forecaster, and she took it everywhere in the world around on shows. So this one went to New York and Tokyo and London. It made a whole world tour. And I had the problem at that time that because everything was made by hand, it became a bit expensive. And there were some people that loved the object so much that they would buy it, but it didn't go in large numbers. So I thought I have to add a little element of shine and exclusivity to it, to make it more appealing and to make it more special, and well, also to make my own projects more special. So that's when I let's see, that's one slide wrong, but anyway, this was a project I did in between. It was about making vases, and it's just one sheet of paper, and I just draw the outline of a vase on the piece of paper, and then it was folded on this line, and well, that's the actual shape you get. And by polishing it and welding it all stainless steel, it became a lot of work, like 2 weeks polishing in one vase. But it becomes a really beautiful and exclusive object. And those were immediately very good sellers. But I was still sort of intrigued by these old style elements, like in cabinets and in all kind of old objects, like standing clocks, old desks and things like that. So I started making, with this background, I started to make a whole series of objects which was more precise and more exclusive than the previous wooden series. So first of all, I started making the chair again, but then in polished stainless steel. And then I thought I make a desk with it, but not just a new sort of desk. I was really intrigued by this old style secretary desks. So this is also a piece which you can totally take apart. This is a standing clock. It's over 2 meters 30 high. I don't know how many that is in feet. So here you see some of the inspiration I had, for example, for this desk. It's a pretty, old style and somehow a bit ugly desk, but I think it got some really nice elements in there. And I also, for example, in this clock, I wouldn't want it in my house, but if you take it and you make it more contemporary, I think you have a sort of beautiful object. And that's what I did with other techniques too. So for example, this amphora, I made it from pieces of solid wood, and all the shiny parts you see, it's actual tin, and it's casted in the wood. So the tin becomes the joint of the wood. And I make this big treasury too with it. But these objects, the no screw, no glue, was what I wanted to go along with, because it was so. I found it was such a challenge to come up with all smaller and smaller and smaller elements, and to combine it and to create more and more details. For example, over here you see all little elements. They're all laser cut, and then they're hand polished in our own workshop, and then they're put together to make this pieces. And this series just expanded big time. So here you see a little candlestick and a lamp, and this one is quite a huge piece. It's a candlestick that's 180 high. So here you see an element that's very important in our work, and that's the promotion of all the pieces. So what we do is we design it, we get it made, but then you also have to sell it, and that's one of the hardest parts, of course. And each year from 2004 and onwards, we went to Milan to the big furniture fair, and we just rented a space outside the fair, and we just did a big promotion to get all the people in and to get our work well known. And we got a lot of press from that, and a lot of contacts with galleries and a lot of collectors. And one of the things we did for a show was a photo series with a French photographer called Sabine Pigalle. And she thought it was a good idea to photograph us in completely black, so to sort of be half, so sort of ghost in the design. So it's really you that's making it, so you're a very important element of the design. But still, once you've made it and once it's with someone else, you're not present anymore, but still sort of ghost of the designer is still present in the pieces. So here I'm holding a chess piece, so you can see the scale of that. And this is the full set. It's I wanted to make this chess set because I wanted to make a game, and I think as a game the chess pieces are the most recognizable and most fantastic pieces there are. So I wanted to combine it in a no screw no glue way, and I found out that there were 886 little pieces needed to get all the pieces there. So every little piece is polished by hand. And one side, the white side, or the black side, I don't really know, that's sandblasted, and the other one is completely shiny. This is also an object which I think it's very important or very strange and nice. An hourglass. I mean, if you want to see the time, you can just look on your watch, on your phone. The time is everywhere. But a thing like this tells so much more about time. It's about the time that has passed, and it's very visual. And by the way, it's a very beautiful and recognizable object. So. And I also found out after I made it, there are loads of collectors for these kind of pieces. Also, for example, this piece. If you want to have a scale, a good working one, you can buy one for $10 at some store, and that works perfectly on the gram secure. But this one, it's more icon of a scale, and I think those icons, are really nice to play with, and they tell so much more about the object. So I think I wouldn't use this in the kitchen. I would, place it there as an object and use the $10 one. Well, for example, this one, it was purchased by a Japanese collector, and then I didn't have the time to go there to build it up. So a guy from the studio, he went with the plane with all the pieces over there and built it up on the spot. And it's nice that you create a piece like this and you promote it, and that it goes all the way to Japan, and people buy it for really a lot of money. And that's also an interesting thing business-wise, because I was thinking I can make a little item and sell it for like $5 or something, or you can make a big cabinet and sell it for $50,000. And I think that's much more interesting to sell one really cool object for a large amount than all these little objects for a small amount. So after I did all this work, I thought I deserved a trophy, because I never won one. So so I made it myself, of course, also the no screw, no glue trophy. And once I made it, I found out that the base of the object was really beautiful, so I decided to add a little bit more pieces to the series. And this is a big candelabrum. It's 125 high in centimeters, so that's about, 4 feet. And this is an oil lantern. And also this tray, I thought it was really interesting, because normally a tray would hold maybe meat with a sauce or something. Well, if you would put it in here, it would all drip out. So it's totally unfunctional. But if you look to some tables anywhere, if it's nice made up, and then people put a tray on the table or put a vase on the table, so something can also be sort of art element on top of something. So this is more meant to be just a beautiful object just to exist. And of course you can put some apples in it if you really like to, or a big salmon just for the picture. So then I thought, we go to Milan again and we need something big, because I want to impress all the people that it's really something special we are doing. So I made a very big cabinet, and just to show you how big, I'm standing inside there. It's almost 5 meters wide and about 1,500 kilos. And it took us with 2 people about 3 days to build this piece up. So piece by piece we put it together, and because it's so heavy it takes a lot of time, and afterwards you have to polish like there's no tomorrow. So once you're done with polishing, and then it's dirty again, so you can start all over. So I think the people that buy these pieces, they need a cleaning woman, with it full time. So this is a bit how we show the pieces. This is in Milan doing the fair. You can rent all kind of places next to the fair or just in the center, and you pay extremely amounts because everyone wants a good spot. But you can display your work, and people go there and get to see everything. And for us, it was really a big step to do all this self-promotion. And we thought at the beginning, if we are just, put our names in the yellow pages under the D of designer, you just asked because you can make things that people want you to make. And we wanted to reverse that. So we wanted to create things we want, and then, push that and push that and push that. And in the end, people come to you because the things you make. So you reverse the whole thing. So if people now ask me to design something, they don't want to, you know, have influence on the design or something. No, they come from me. And that's really a nice thing nowadays, because now I can hopefully do it for the rest of my life. I can do whatever I want. So that's that's a nice thing. So this was a show. It was called Quality Time, because at that time we were doing all kind of things with time. So the hourglass was there. You see a carpet by Kiki. We were having the game, the chess piece. It's also about playing in time. I made a clock at that time. So a lot of things with time. There's another picture of it. And with the chairs, they're like this. And the year after, you see over there the big cabinet in the back. It was another space also in Milan. And you see in the front the big screen and the sofa made by Kiki. So, and the origin, where it all comes from. This was the first workshop we really had, apart from the squatted place and some sheds behind Kiki's house at that time. This was our first workshop. It was next to the one of Maarten Baas, you all know, because he burns all the stuff and clays all the chairs. And yeah, it was still pretty small back then, with a very little workshop, but with a lot of effort and hand tools and a lot of energy, we could make quite a lot of things. But then it was time to move to some bigger space with some more also place to do shows in our workshop and to expand the size of our work. This is in an old Philips factory. So where we live and work in Eindhoven, it used to be all Philips electronics. So in this building they used to make all the radios and CD players and stuff. And they all moved out in the mid-90s to China and stuff to do the production. So now they all, all being used for creative little companies like us. So we thought it was promotion-wise, it was nice to play a little bit with the fact that on one side it's sort of glamorous, this whole design, so you have these parties, a lot of champagne. It was also the time we were working for a champagne brand called Veuve Clicquot. And so that's the really glamorous side, but on the other side you have to get your hands dirty and get the things made. So there's a lot of dust involved. So that's why we made this picture. At the side somewhere, some intern is throwing a lot of sawdust in the air and making the picture. And at this exhibition, we showed on one side all the finished products, and it was all nice. And on the other side, we had the workshop where people were still making all the things. So there was quite a luxury to be able to make such a big show in our own workshop. So we moved again because they were going to make loft apartments over there, and they bought us out. So we have even now a bigger space. So we have a 13,000 square feet workshop. This is just a clean studio with a library part. You see me in the wood workshop, still with these molds. Although we use CNC now, I cannot throw them away because sometimes we still do those things by hand if it's another material or something. So you see a bit of the size of the workshop. This is an old paper factory of Philips, and it's quite nice because in the old days when Philips was still there, they said as a company, they thought if someone can earn some money on making paper for cardboard, for the packaging, why don't we make the paper and the packaging ourselves, so to earn even more. And that's also exactly the way we work a little bit. So by doing everything yourself and just to hire the people and get it all done for you, you can make a much nicer and better living. So over there we have our own showroom where we show special projects. Yeah, and after I did all the no screw no glue pieces with stainless steel, all hand polished, I did this piece in 2010, and this one was the most complex. And when I was designing this one, I thought, okay, I'm never gonna work this out because it's so complex and it didn't work, and it wasn't a big time. It was a big time stress. But in the end, it worked. But I was a bit fed up with it because this piece had taken me so long, and it was such a struggle. But in the end, it's a really, really nice piece. It's quite big and heavy, and you have to carry it with 4 people. Otherwise, it's too heavy. It's about 140 high, so it's about this high, and it consists of about 700 separate elements and a lot of different layers. So to design this piece was really a nightmare. And after that, I thought, okay, I cannot really go more into detail with this technique because, yeah, this is like the most you can do, and otherwise you have to make a thinner material, or you have to do something else. But I thought it was more interesting to find the specialty and refineness in maybe another material or another way of working. So what I then did is I remade one of my cabinets, and I had it made of corten steel, and I put it together. And I put it outside in the rain, so it rusted. And that was really a really nice moment, because all of a sudden the shine was gone, and it was rusted, like this piece had, you know, existed for a couple of 100 years and was almost gone. But because of the special steel, the corten steel, it doesn't rust any further, so it stays like this, and it's beautifully varnished. So it's a really clean object. But the rust gives it a really special feeling. And because it rusts all in a different way, every object will become a sort of unique. So I could redo some of the objects I already did, like the clock and this big standing clock. But I could also do a couple of new things again, like a new candelabrum and a smaller candlestick. And this object was for me quite important also, because I thought, what's an item you normally want to put away after you used it? And I thought of, yeah, it's a barbecue. You put it in the garden. If you're done with it, you put it in your shed. At least in Holland you do that. So you take it away again. And then I thought, okay, let's make more sort of sculpture of a piece. And so I make it also in the no screw no glue style with the corten steel. So you can just place it in your garden and leave it there also as a sculpture. And if you don't want to put it away, only because of the weight, because it's like 80 kilos, so you don't want to put it away. And I make this big cabinet, and we made a big show in New York at Moss Gallery. And there was a treat that was put like this on the New York Times front page of the home department. So it was a quite nice moment to see a piece and to see it in such a big article. And for the rest, in the workshop, we are still working with things we can also do all in our own workshop. So, for example, this series, I made it because it's still a crisis and people don't spend that much money on these really exclusive items anymore. So I thought about a way of making furniture which you could make to size very easily. So what I done here, I took 5 centimeters, so 2 inches wide strips of metal, and we can just cut it any length we want, and we have special molds for the welding, and we can make all kinds of little cabinets with or without doors and little layers. And so people can come to me and they say, okay, I want to have a 2-layer and 2-layer high, and it should be 100 wide, 40 deep, and 80 high, something like that. And we can just make it for a very affordable price. And it adds a new layer also as a designer, because you become a sort of old carpenter where you would go, okay, make me a bed or a chair or a table to size. And now as a company we can also act like this carpenter used to do. And just because we're making all these things, for example, this series of lamps, there's also a smaller one and one hanging on the wall hanging version. I made this, and it drew the attention of the label called Mooi, and now we are making these versions with casted elements for their collection. So next year in Milan they will launch this collection for their brand. So also that's nice that you just create something from your own workshop and you put it on show, and then it can evolve in something else again. This was a nice project I also did together with Moss in New York. We talked about this little clock and the fact that I did it before in stainless steel and in rust. And he said, okay, wouldn't it be a really nice idea to come up with all kind of finishings? So we thought about it, and it was really nice because in this way you can be very, it's sort of very durable project because I'm using not durable materials or very eco-friendly or something, but I use the same design 16 times, so I'm very durable in that way. And in this way it was we have anodized aluminium, we did a 24 karat gold plating, patined brass, we did silver plating, we did fire them so it became sort of blue and black, so all kind of finishings, and it was really a nice project to work on. So apart from all these projects, we also do quite a lot of interior projects, and for example for fair stands. This is for example for a furniture company in Holland called Arend, and they made furniture for office furniture, and they wanted to make it more for the housing. So they wanted to sell their tables and the chairs also for houses. We thought it was not really a good idea because they were very boring, but so we also made the interior much more important. So we scaled the interior to 130%. So all the furniture looks a bit small and silly, and even more silly because we took the designers and made a bust from all the designers, and we placed them on as really important persons in the fair stand. And luckily for us, they didn't really get the irony of the project. This is another sort of fair stand we did. Some in-between projects, and this is a project we did for a company that does luxury furniture in Holland, called Lebesque, and they asked us to come up with a new project for their collection. And then I thought that they were also a company that were very traditional, and I didn't really like it. So I thought about, okay, what I'm gonna make for them. I'm gonna make a pallet rack, the most sort of cheap project you would put in your shed or in a garage. But then I make it into such an exclusive project that I don't have a clue what to do with it. So in this case I took metal and have it all silver plated, and all the boards are made of solid Wenge wood and they slide over it. And in this case it was nice because you make some really sort of cheap cabinet or a rack into a really exclusive object. So in the end this is placed in the interior again. So I think the contradiction between those two is really, really nice and interesting. And this was another project for Italian company. It's called Sketch. They were launched in 2008, I think, and they asked me to do a project with Venetian mirror. So this whole cabinet is made from glass, from mirror, and you can't really see it in the picture because everything reflects. So they did a lot of Photoshop to make it sort of clean again. But this is totally mirror. And I made this big table, and they called it a Coke table because, well, for obvious reasons. And also the architecture I like to put in those projects. I used in this case for sort of exclusive range of stands for Chanel No. 5, and this was then made for a sheikh in Kuwait who wants to sell luxury products. Was the founder of Villa Moda Fashion. So then these pieces are sold to these rich ladies in the Middle East, and you fly over there to promote it, which is also sometimes nice. And I was asked, this project became quite famous because it's all made of cardboard. What you see here, I was asked to design interior of an office. The office was called Nothing. They called themselves like that. And I thought, okay, what's the most nothing material you can find? And I thought about cardboard. Also because there was basically nothing in terms of budget, so it had to stay really cheap. So what I did also, no screw no glue again. I tried to find a way to cut this cardboard with CNC cutting, and it went quite well. So then we just made the whole thing from cardboard. It's 500 square meter. I don't know. Well, that's a lot. And we just cut it and assembled it on the spot. And because a thing like an office, a thing like this, is just some kind of skin, and you don't really have to use it. I mean, it's just a sort of this is a boardroom and a place you use to sit under and discuss something. But apart from that, you don't really use the walls or do anything with it. So it can be just sort of weak material like the cardboard. We made some tables and we made some little lacquer on top of them to prevent them from coffee stains and things like that. And of course there's some reinforcement under this podium. But after 3 years it's still standing there, and it got a lot of attention internationally, and people asking me like, can you do it again? And because it's so nice and so sustainable. And that's when I thought like the whole sustainable thing, it's so strange because you find this project on a lot of those green and sustainable blogs, and they think this is a good example how you can sort of recycle something. And sometimes I even go on the blogs and say, okay, I'm sorry, but I don't think it's really sustainable, because still I have used so much energy and material. So if you want to really be sustainable, you better do nothing. Yeah. And you're back to the name of the office again. Well, and then also very nice little companies like this company is called Secondo Me. They're based in Rome, in Italy, and they like to work with ceramics and glass, and they have all the companies that do that for them. And I just designed these 2 pieces for them, and it's going really well, also internationally. And it's so the basic is a terracotta, like just normal pottery with a top glaze of silver, and then you have the hand-blown glass on top. And while we're working with glass, we were asked by a glass company in Murano. It's near Venice, a little island, and the only thing they do over there is glass blowing. They're like the best in the whole world with glass. And they wanted to have a project done by me and by Kiki also, to do a kick-off show with us for their new collection at Sotheby's in London. Not to do an auction, but just to do a nice show. And that was really a nice opportunity to work with these people, because normally you don't, just walk in there and you say, okay, can you make this for me? Because it's huge investments in molds, and the glass blowers are extremely expensive. So this was really a nice way to be introduced with the material. And yeah, of course you have to come up with a new project again. And after looking to all these glass objects that have been done throughout the centuries, I thought, okay, most of the glass is just being used as an object, just as beautiful object. All those vases that are being made, no flower is going to be put in there because it's just way too expensive to do that. And all the pots, they are just standing there because it's beautiful. So in a way, yeah, you end up with a sort of useless product, which is very nice again, because then you can be as expressive as you want. So also these products are made for them, and they are sort of resemblance to all these centerpieces they've been made of glass, but now without any function, except for this little clock. So these pieces, well, the clock looks now a bit bigger because that's the smallest object. The project on the side, that sort of pot, it's about 1 meter high, so they're quite big pieces. And those craftsmen over there, it's extremely hot if you work there, but they're very nice, nice craftsmen. And also to work in a furnace there and to work with these craftsmen also gave me an idea of, okay, I want to be more the craftsman in my own workshop again. So I've done a lot of laser cutting, and then that's all done somewhere else. And then you can only do the final bit. So you can do the polishing or the rusting and the assembly. So I thought, okay, what will happen if we're going to do all of that in our own workshop? So I was intrigued by the workshop, and first I did this project also with the glass company. It's I call it the Fragile Factory, because it's all glass trestles, and the glass resembles the metal material that's you will find in real factories. But actually, this is made of very thin and very fragile glass, so you touch it and it will break. But then we started to make our own sort of little factory in our workshop. So what I did, I wanted to create the no screw, no glue range, but then reinvent it and use just 1 centimeter thick steel plates and a blowtorch. And in this case, it's David, because I don't dare to cut that because it's quite scary. And then to come up with this no screw, no glue project, but then in a more rough way, like you see over here. So all the edges are polished and they are sort of little bit smooth out, but I don't want to make it all straight, and I don't want to make it too fine. I want to keep it a bit rough so you can see it's all being handmade. And what's funny about these things, we just start with some elements, and then we just sort of composing on the spot, and we see what's happening, so you can be more like a sculpture in a project. So this is, for example, a desk. We're now working on a chair that will go along with it. But a chair also, it's an object you would not be able to take and put it any closer to the desk. So also this set would be more something that the people would put somewhere just as a showpiece or something. Just like this piece, but a clock is always a nice piece to make, because a clock only has to say to you the time, and that's the most easy part, because you just buy a clockwork and you put it in there and then you have a clock. And that's also the nice thing about a clock, because you see the time everywhere. You don't need to make it more functional than it already is, so you can be really creative in how the clock looks. So I think the clock is a really nice element to design. So that something can also become an art object more. It was funny to make these pieces for a museum. There's a Dutch museum called the Zuiderzee Museum, and it's a sort of not really a local museum, but it's about the history of Dutch culture. And they asked me and also Kiki at that time to come up with a project that was based on their collection. And we were allowed to go into the archives of the museum and be inspired on everything they had. And they had this beautiful collection of all robbed objects from the East. So, because that's Dutch history. I mean, we became very rich with robbing the East. So, yeah, we went with the boats, which was all made in Holland, and it was a good boat making, and we sailed to the East and basically, took everything from there. Also the ceramics, and they come back and very proud. So I wanted to use these elements of a sort of pride, but make it as a shameful thing. So in this way, I put the treasure chests, I call them. They open up in a sort of proud way. So look what I found. And there you see, for example, the mortar and the pounder that represent some spices. And these are the special designed hinges that were designed to open the doors. So these are more spice pots that was taken. And of course the pepper. And to see the scale of it all. You see this one. So this, let's go back. Yeah, this one is about 4 meters wide. So it's very it's a very big project altogether. And because it was so large, I needed to make these special hinges to be able to open up the doors. And I took the ceramics and I made a special technique. I call it the scratch technique. So I applied a second layer of top glazing, and then after it was applied in a very thin layer, we just hand scratched everything away till you had this pattern. And with the scratching, I wanted to say sort of scratching away the shameful history of the Dutch. So because they used to take all these blue Chinese pottery with them, so I wanted to wipe out the normal things that were on the plates. So, but all the plates you see, although you don't see them, are of course all hand scratched. So there are about 120 plates or something. Lots of work. And here you see the result of the scratching. And I thought it was really also a nice pattern. So I go on. I'm now working on a whole project with furniture that's also hand scratched. But at the same time, I thought it was nice to work in the workshop with your hands on these kind of patterns, and yeah, to create some new ways of creating patterns. And there was a time that we were asked by Bernhard Design, the American company, to design a whole range of textiles for their furniture textiles. So then I thought, okay, how can I do that? I never designed any textile or any patterns. So I just went into the workshop and took these pieces of wood and I just nailed them together. And then I thought, okay, this looks pretty nice as it is. So I went on with that. Over here you see some pattern I make with some leftover woods and then some spray can. Here it's a bit the same. And then I would give it to Kiki, and she would scan this thing and put layers of tape over it and make it into a new layer. And it was one of the first times we were ever working together on a project. And because we already thought that would be a bit of a struggle, we called it fun fighting on fabric. So we gave a layer to each of us. So this was the second layer done by Kiki, gave it back to me, and I would apply another layer. And then in the end, we just made all these patterns. It was all worked out in a sort of very simplified way. And we created all these patterns with 8 different colors. And the nice thing about it is that they can all be combined. So all these different textiles all go along with each other. And it was applied on. That was for promotional. For the promotion, we made these suits because we thought it was a nice idea to make a sort of workshop overalls and then make a whole photo shoot with that. So here you can see us in the workshop with a workshop overalls with the final product for Bernhard Design. And yeah, that's what I think is a nice thing in the way that if you create really the way you want to work, which I have done, yeah, then I can still be this little boy playing with wood blocks. So that's what I'm still am. Thank you.
On that cardboard interior, it looked like the floor was made out of cardboard that was varnished.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit fake. Yeah, so we made a print on. So we took the top layer of the cardboard and applied it on MDF. So it is the cardboard, but it's with a sort of solid base there. Yeah, that's printed on there. Yeah, so it looks. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about using deterioration or the degradation of the surface as a way to come to a very interesting surface treatment. It's, you know, we're always so busy spending hours and hours polishing and making the surface perfect. How was it to actually just give up control and let the surface be created? There's a number of artists and designers who are doing this at the moment. I'm interested in hearing your point of view.
Yeah, I think it's really nice that. Did everyone understand the question? I don't know. So, I think it's really interesting because you, as you say, you give away a little bit of the process. So you let it go, and still you want to control it. So I have my little bit of acid to control the amount of corrosion, and so at one point I say, okay, now it's enough. So then you varnish it, and it's done. So in a way, you're still controlling it. But I think the nice way of the rust is that you give a certain life to something, and that you add another layer. In this way, the nature or your the way you treat it to it. And I think it's totally different than you would apply just a layer of lacquer on it. It's more like you would paint it by hand or something. But in this way, it's sort of painted by nature. Maybe that's yeah. There are a lot of examples where you can see that an object become more interesting because of the use of a material. Another Dutch designer you might know, Piet Hein Eek, he uses scrap wood, and because everyone throws away the scrap wood, but because he uses it, you get another layer and another, like it already had a life, and in this way, yeah, it also did. So.
I have a question. So first I have to say thank you. Your work's very beautiful, and I went to school here actually at the same time you were starting to do some of your work, and I was in Milan, and I loved it when I first saw it. And so my question's actually to do with your exclusivity versus being inclusive, and a lot of the work you were talking about is very exclusive. Yeah. And I guess I want to get your thoughts and opinions on that. Is it something that, how do you feel about that morally, and just, I would assume most of the pieces you're selling are to people that are collectors.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Yeah, of course it has two sides, but first of all, personally I think that most of the products we buy nowadays are too cheap. So it's not the fact that I'm very expensive in a product. So because everything is now so mass-produced, and people want to buy a table and not even think about buying it. You know, you just buy it because it's so cheap, and after 2 years you just throw it away because it has no real value for you. So personally I think, first of all, that most of the products are made in a very cheap way, and so it's really, yeah, the value really goes down. So if you would make those prices at least double, so the difference would be less. So that's one. And on the other side, I think it's important to also keep a sort of craftsmanship in, whether you call it design, craftsmanship, or art, I don't know. But that there are people that just create objects they want, and sort of objects of desire, and that not everything is being ruled by the rules of economy, and because of the big shops, they only buy this and that. So by creating those things yourself, I think you create a new market. And well, you can buy a little clock for 500 euros. I think that's quite reasonable. So still, it's not too expensive. And if you really want it, I've also sort of collectors that are not really rich, but they just save a little money for it. So I think also nowadays people spend a lot of money on computers and on clothes and everything, but a nice clock that you will have for the rest of your life can only cost maybe, I don't know, 50 euros or something. So, yeah.
Do you think that it's possible to be inclusive and still keep a strong personality in the work? Or do you think that those two things are separate? Like, for example, IKEA is very inclusive of everybody, but the personality is sometimes lacking.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, just a separate question, you do a lot of furniture. Is there anything else in design that you'd like to do? Just, I do a lot of product design in the city, and so it's a different type of work that you do. Yeah. But I'm just curious, doing what you're doing, is there anything else you would like to do in the future?
Yeah. First, the first question, I think it's always very important to do very personal works. As an example, that you know, the company called Mooi with the trios. They took Maarten Baas's burnt furniture in their collection because it was nice to show off. And they thought, okay, we might sell maybe 20 pieces of that. It's their ultimate bestseller ever. They couldn't, you know, they didn't think it would work, but it worked in the end. And I think one of the reasons is because it's super special and nice, and people want something extraordinary. And if you would really think about it and gonna debate about it, whether you should invest in such a project or something, it probably would have been left out of the collection. So I think if they're brave and cool companies that are there to do something very special, I think that's very important, not only for design but just maybe even for the world, so you are left in the end with all average projects. And what I want to do myself more is even expand the workshop even better, so maybe even create more sort of art pieces on one side in the workshop, and on the other side maybe finding ways how to make a real product from that. So without compromising, you might end up with a sort of art piece that could be a lamp or something, and it would be really nice if this lamp would be then produced. So if you look, for example, to what's his name? Well, the lamp designer. Well, I forgot. Fuck. The Italian. Anyway, you can make very personal and very nice. Ingo Mauer, thank you. You have very nice and personal project that also sell very well, and I think he's a sort of sculptor, and it works in that way. So I can imagine doing a bit more of that. Yeah.
From your point of view, why do you think Dutch design has become so relevant, and how do you see your own work fitting into that?
I think this Dutch design is, well, it was originally from Holland, because there were a bunch of people that were, I think, a bit fed up with the fact that a lot of people didn't produce their projects, and they were, you know, they had this whole pile with ideas and didn't know what to do with it. So they started to make it themselves, and I think that's the most important thing. So they didn't wait for a producer for that. So they did it themselves, went to Milan, promoted, and that became very sort of fresh and new, because all the Italians, they were all waiting for this company to produce it. It all took years and years and years to produce it. So that was very slow, and this was very sort of direct. You could make something, and the month after it could be in the shops all over the world. So that made a whole sort of new thing. And nowadays you also find this sort of Dutch mentality in well, especially I think in London there's a big community with really cool designers who are also just self-producing. And yeah, personally I think that Droog Design, one of the sort of founders of Dutch design, or it was a company that all took this separate designer and make it into a brand. They're not really relevant anymore, but I think the mentality that it has created, that's still very relevant. So you not wait for someone else, you just create. Is that a bit? Okay.
I really like your no screw, no glue design. It's really interesting how you're taking away the ornamentation, this classic clock or table or desk, and then also kind of thinking about materiality as well. But kind of as this like DNA and generation is like continuing, where do you see it going? Is this a never-ending project, or is this going to end at some point?
Yeah, that's. I think it's never really ending. I'm working on a slightly bigger scale. I'm making buildings with the thing. So yeah, it's a slightly bigger. So I'm working now with a large prefab company that does concrete prefab components, and yeah, we first trying for a big exhibition next year, a sort of pavilion that will be about, I don't know, 10 meters wide by 5, so it's still quite small. But now I'm working also on a bigger architectural project, and I want to make a 8-story high building with it. So, you know, that would be quite cool. Big crane putting all these pieces together. So that will be yeah, that will be quite nice to do that. Yeah. And put this picture next to it. Yeah. I always wanted to, as a kid, also to be a crane. They call it operator. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're expanding up to buildings, how are you dealing with the sort of structural integrity, structural engineering side of it? Are you consulting with people? Are you learning it yourself? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, that's a nice question, because I think you cannot do everything in a design. So in this way, there is I'm just the sort of artistic architect, and there is a technical architect who's gonna do all the things, all the other things, all the all the terrible things. Because I'm allergic to, and I don't know how to. So and you cannot just learn it, and I'm not willing to do a 4-year study to be able to calculate this kind of thing. So there are people better in that, and yeah, they will do that part. And also we're working now on a project where it's a public space project, and they asked us to, this me and Kiki, a collaboration project, to come up with an idea for in the landscape they want to have walking trails, and they have to pass a little piece of water or some I don't know what, and we all have to make a little bridge for that and all kind of things. So we thought, okay, it's nice. What we actually are doing is making a little bridge there. So we made a sketch, and in the end we thought, okay, this sketch is actually what it should look like, because it's exactly what it's about. So we just sketched it, and then we gave it to a metal company, and we said, okay, you have to make it, and they have to fill in all these forms, and they have to apply for building and construction permits and things like that. So it's a long way, and we don't want to get bored by it, and we don't know how to calculate it all, and whether it should be welded in some kind of way. So there are companies that do that for you, and they're perfect, and that makes the whole process also very, very much faster, because we can do this whole project within a year, which is really nice. Yeah.
You have a really cool job.
Yeah, I do.
And I stole a couple valuable lessons from you during your speech, and one of them was you started out by finding something that you did well, that you liked, and you exploited that, and you concentrated on that, and you worked really hard on that one thing, and it's allowed you to expand and sort of create, as opposed to getting diluted at the beginning, and I think that's important. You also put an emphasis on storytelling and self-promotion at the same time, and I'm wondering, because for someone to have a career such as yourself, and that's pretty rare, I'm wondering sort of what else you would offer up as advice, or what other little special secret is it to say somebody wanted to have a similar experience, or what else does it take to pull something like that off?
A lot of persuasion, and really sort of this passion to do what you want to do. I think that's the most important thing, because I think not everyone that's over here could work in the same way, and it's not necessary that everyone does that. But if you want to be a sort of creator, if you have that sort of urge to do that, then you should just go for it. And I think you should be willing to make some sacrifices. For example, we have a beautiful workshop, but it's in Eindhoven. I mean, that's a big sacrifice, I can tell you. And you know, for a long time it was quite hard to make a sort of living, and now it's become a lot better, but you know, the first years are quite a struggle, so you also have to go through this whole period with a lot of no's, and finally get to this point where it will work. So an advice would be a partner that does the same thing. That will help quite a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.